So now, you can see a double-pronged challenge in Thessalonica for the sober-minded believers who haven't lost their senses. One challenge, we've got persecution to deal with, and we don't understand what's going on here and how to fit this in, and Paul deals with that in chapter 1. I'll tell you exactly how it's a right judgment of God. And that was Monday night. And the second issue is, I don't know how many, but a lot of you are out of your minds and you're quitting your jobs. And that has to be dealt with, and that's today's message. So how does the Lord's coming, this is so amazing that he would go into the kind of detail he goes into on the second coming and the days leading up to it to handle this issue of get back to work. I love Paul. Don't you love Paul? So let's read chapter 2, verses 3 to 12. Let no one deceive you in any way, because for that day, say it again, day of the Lord, parousia, gathering to meet him in the air with the angels, that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first. And the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. Do you not remember that when I was still with you, I told you these things? And you know, because I told you. We don't, and he hasn't told us. You know what is restraining him now, so that he may be revealed in his time. His time. God has a time for the man of lawlessness. It's not here yet. It'll come when whatever the restrainer is taken away. God's in charge of that. And you know what is restraining him now, so that when, I'm still in verse 6, so that when he may be revealed, so that he may be revealed in his time. Verse 7. For the mystery of lawlessness, so you got a man of lawlessness, and now you got a mystery of lawlessness, is already at work. Only he who now restrains it will do so until he's out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, comma, relative clause, whom the Lord Jesus will kill with the breath of his mouth and bring to nothing by the appearance of his parousia. The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan. With all power, that's a remarkable phrase for a man empowered by Satan. That should be a God phrase, right? With all power and ESV, false signs and wonders, we'll come back to that. And with all wicked deception, we'll come back to that. For those who are perishing because they refuse to love the truth. They didn't love it. They didn't want to love it. That's where we'll end. Therefore, God sends them a strong delusion so that they may believe what is false and may be condemned with all who did not believe the truth but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Now, two things strike me immediately about Paul's response to the situation of the alarmist, irrational disorientation concerning the second coming in Thessalonica. One of these two things that strike me is how amazingly detailed and long and full it is. He goes on and on, right, about the rebellion and a man of lawlessness and sitting in the temple of God and something restraining him and a mystery of lawlessness and satanic power and signs and wonders and a great delusion and the appearing of Jesus and the slaying. That's a lot to get people back to work. And then to say, it's not here yet, folks. The other thing that strikes me is that in spite of all this detail, he has left us with unanswered questions. Like, what rebellion? What man of lawlessness? Who's that? What temple seated in? What restrainer, person or thing, masculine and neuter in the text? What's the mystery of lawlessness? So on the one hand, he says more than I expected. And on the other hand, the more that he says leaves me with a lot of unanswered questions. Now, I think verse 5 explains those two impressions that I get reading this text. Look at verse 5. Don't you remember, and evidently they didn't very well anyway, don't you remember that when I was still with you, I told you these things? That's amazing. Like, how long was he in Thessalonica? Chapter 17 of Acts, verses 1 to 9. A few weeks? And he told them about the man of lawlessness, baby Christians. Not insignificant, perhaps, in your discipleship. So he had told them these things, and in remarkable detail had he told them these things. And it looks like they've forgotten, so it seems like because of their failure to remember, he's rehearsing so much. But since they had already heard this, he doesn't answer every question. I'm sure, I probably wouldn't stake my life on it, that when he taught this in those 3 weeks, somebody raised their hand and said, who's the man of lawlessness? And I'm sure he didn't say, none of your business. He probably would have helped them. Now, here's a lesson, a little parenthesis on the nature of Scripture. In God's providence, in creating and preserving this book, like the epistles, for his church in all ages, God does not see to it that everything the early church talked about with the apostles we get to know. We don't. And I think that is a work of God's wisdom and goodness. He knows what he's doing. It's better for us to know what is preserved in this book of apostolic and prophetic writings than that we know all the detailed conversations Paul had at Thessalonica. It's better. Or God is unwise in inspiration. We have what we need for salvation and God-pleasing obedience. We don't have enough, as the panel made plain yesterday, to answer all our questions, and we're not meant to. So, what can we know from this chapter? What can we know from 2 Thessalonians 2 that will help us not be shaken loose from our senses or fall into the alarmist hysteria of any eschatological mistake, but rather remain steadfast in good works and gainful employment? That's my question. Let's see what we can learn. Seems to me, and this will be my outline for the rest of this message, that Paul says there are two things that has to happen before the parousia. And he explains why he mentions those two things out of all the things he could mention. And he takes us to the very practical root of the matter that explain how you can be protected from the hysteria and deceit of the last day, which has, of course, begun. But we'll come to a climax. When? Verse 3. Let's talk about the first thing that has to happen. Let no one deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion or the apostasy, the falling away, comes first. Now, that word, rebellion or apostasy, has to refer to more than the process of ups and downs in biblical faithfulness of God's people over the centuries. Has to refer to more than that, because that observation won't work in Paul's argument. It's of no help in settling the hysteria that has taken over in some of the people of Thessalonica. If it's plausible that they could say to Paul, well, of course the rebellion has already happened. There's lots of people falling away because of this persecution. If they could plausibly say that, Paul's argument is useless here. It's of no help in answering his issue. So Paul, when he says the rebellion hasn't happened, the apostasy hasn't happened, he's thinking of something decisive, epoch-making, climaxing, recognizable, catastrophic, sweeping, just before the man of lawlessness is revealed and Jesus kills him. And since we have seen numerous parallels, like 3 so far, we'll see others. Since we've seen 3 parallels between the Thessalonian language about the second coming and Jesus' language about the second coming, it's fitting, therefore, that we take our cue and go to Jesus and say, do you have anything to say about the apostasy? Is he getting this from you, like he got so much from you, it seems? And I think the answer is yes. Go to Matthew 24, verses 9 to 13. I'll read it to you. Matthew 24, 9 to 13. Then, these words then are significant running through this. Then, after the beginning of the global birth pangs, then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations by my namesake. That's provocative. Because panta ta esne, all nations here, evidently world evangelization is virtually over, because all the nations know enough about Jesus to hate his people. They'll deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then, well along in church history, therefore, many will fall away. Apostasy, rebellion. Many gone. Many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. Now, of course, that happens all through history. Nobody's denying that. That's why you got this telescoping ambiguity in the Bible, Old and New Testament. Many will fall away. Like, remember, John said, many antichrists have come. That's how we know the end is here. But the Antichrist is coming. They thought this way. Of course, that happens all through history. But the word then, verse 10, seems to show that Jesus is thinking a climactic gathering storm. Many false prophets will arise and lead many astray, because lawlessness is increased Ring any bells? We're talking Man of Lawlessness. We're talking Mystery of Lawlessness. Where'd Paul get that? Why go anywhere else? He's getting everything else here. Lawlessness will be increased. We're at Matthew 24:12 for that. Lawlessness will be increased, and the love of many will grow cold. Great rebellion and apostasy. But the one who endures to the end, which sounds like final decisive generation language, will be saved. So that's the kind of thing Paul, I think, is reading in the tradition that he handed on. He said, I gave you these traditions. And that's the way he's thinking about the climactic rebellion or apostasy at the end. It's decisive, it's epic-making, it's catastrophic. It's coming from inside and outside the church. All nations hating you from outside, great growing cold on the inside. That's coming, Paul says. It's not limited to a period of time. It's not limited to history as a process. It's identifiable. That's why he can argue the way he's arguing. It's not here yet. Go back to work. Second event. So first, rebellion, apostasy has to come. Here's the second thing that has to happen. Namely, the man of lawlessness. And he's trying to say the coming, the parousia, the gathering to meet the Lord in the air, the day of the Lord isn't here. Because before that, this has to happen. Verse 3 again. Let no one deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first. And, number 2, the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction. So let's do Puritan here. Jason said 8thly, 9thly, 10thly. I'm going to do 7thly, right? 7 things clearly are said here about the man of lawlessness. Number 1, he's a man. He's not an angel, not a demon. He's just human. Could be you. 2, he is quintessentially lawless. That is, considered himself above law. He's lawless. Number 3, since there is only one above law, God, who renders all law, that's what he claims to be. Verse 4, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. That's a final climactic antichrist. Paul doesn't use that word here, just manifest. I am Christ, your God. Number 4, he is born for destruction. Verse 3, middle of the verse. The son of destruction. That is, his DNA, if Paul were to use DNA, his seed from his father is destruction. Son of a gun. No, son of destruction. Born for it, has no future, quintessentially lawless and doomed by the nature of lawlessness. Number 5, as a man, he's coming, nevertheless, by the power of Satan. Verse 9, the coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan. Therefore, number 6, as a man, he will have supernatural power. Satan is supernatural. Paul calls it all power. And he will work signs and wonders. Now, when the ESV says in verse 9, false signs and wonders, that's a confusing translation because I think almost everybody would read that to mean they're not real signs and wonders, they're tricks. They're rabbits out of a hat. They're using mirrors. They're not. Satan works signs and wonders. Many will say to me on that day, did we not do many mighty works? And Jesus won't say, no, you didn't. They did. You go to Deuteronomy 13, right? Verses 1 to 3. When a false prophet comes and tells you to depart from Yahweh and prophesies, if that prophecy comes true, don't follow him. It comes true. It happens here as well. He's testing your love for the truth. So let's translate it, signs and wonders of the lie. Literal translation, signs and wonders of the lie. They serve the lie. That's what they do. Satan empowers the man of lawlessness to do signs and wonders. Millions of Christians think, cool, that's my God, and go after him and are deceived. They serve the lie. Number 7, therefore the man of lawlessness will be unparalleled in his ability to deceive. Verse 10, with all wicked deception for those who are perishing. Now, again, the translation wicked deception obscures something we got to see. It's deception of unrighteousness. Deception of unrighteousness. Adikia. And the reason I got to see it is because it's repeated at the end of verse 12, and the parallel is crucial. Oh, yes. So the deception is going to be by means of making unrighteousness look really juicy. It's going to be so juicy you can't resist it unless you love and take superior pleasure in the truth.